What's up guys, today we are looking at tournament strategy and game plans especially good for white belts and blue belts. Although any belt color and non-competitors can utilize this guide, as we are really just going over fundamentals that are low risk, effective, and high percentage. I highly recommend a game plan rather than just going out there and winging it. I'm going to show you each game plan in full and then go over the details that are crucial for making each technique a success. For our takedown, we're going to go with an ankle pick. Ankle picks are super low risk and highly effective. Now we're going to go with a knee slide into side control and hold it for at least 3 seconds to secure our 3 points. Our mount entry is going to be a low knee on belly to mount. Tons of pressure and low risk of being regarded or rolled over. We need to hold tight for at least 3 seconds to secure our 4 points. Then we hit our S mount armbar to win the match. Any takedown is way easier when our opponent doesn't have grips on us. 2 hands on 1 and turn your body to the side to break the grip and keep it down so they don't regrip your lapel. Pull your opponent forward so they step and you can reach the ankle. Ideally we land in side control, but more often than not it's in their guard. We also want to make sure we drop to a knee to reach their ankle. Then stand up and either drive forward or bring their leg to the side. Check out this ankle pick in this tournament footage from when I was a brown belt. I have this big black belt's back and he just flips me over like it's nothing. Luckily I land on my feet like a cat and wait for my opportunity for the ankle pick. When he steps forward I drop to a knee and grab the ankle. This was the end of the match that I won 21-0 in my first tournament as a brown belt. It's now a great memory. Another way to force your opponent to step forward is to pretend like you're pulling guard. I lift my foot up in the air as if I'm trying to place it on their hip and sit to my guard, but surprise, as they step forward I drop to a knee and grab their ankle. Another benefit is you don't have to break grips first, and if it doesn't work out you can either reset back to your feet or actually pull guard. Check out this rolling footage. It's a tough task to take down a 315-pound man, but my fake guard pull ankle pick pulls him in. As he tries to retreat, it makes it even easier to finish. At this in-house tournament I hit this beautifully. Really watch the step of my opponent. This step is really what we're after. This blew my mind and made me really happy. A subscriber sent this to me. After watching one of my videos, he hit this fake guard pull ankle pick at a tournament. That's really awesome to me. Once we hit the ground, we're going knee slide. See how I pin Nikki's bottom leg with my knee? I want it flat on the ground and unable to move. My right arm stays on the lapel with my elbow tight to avoid Nikki taking an underhook. Alternatively, I could take my own underhook if it's available. If your opponent can put their knee shield in, a cool trick I like to do is just to lift up on their knee and bring my elbow back to the inside, then just finish the knee slide like before. Once you're in side control, keep your toes engaged to drive into your opponent. You need your opponent controlled and on their back for at least 3 seconds to get your pass points. You have to work the hardest during this initial time or your opponent will re-guard and you will not get points, only an advantage. Our mount entry is a low knee on belly, different from a regular knee on belly because we're postured low. I base on my head so it can't be rolled over and drive my knee through. I flick my leg to the side so Nikki can't catch my leg as I finish. 1 second, I'll move Nikki over so you can see a different angle. I force my knee through Nikki's elbow and knee. I really like this mount entry because you're not allowing any space for your partner to counter. You want to make them suffer with the pressure a little bit in this one. You gotta hold mount at least 3 seconds to get points. To make it easier, drop your hips and put your legs underneath theirs. We're going to set up the armbar by threatening the cross collar choke. As they bring their hand up to protect their neck, it creates room for us to shoot our knee up high. Now we can lift their arm up and bring our leg underneath for S mount. We can finish our S mount armbar belly down or fall to our back. Falling to your back will make it easier to break grips if they have them, so I generally recommend finishing from there. Posting your hand on the mat will make it easier to bring your leg over their head because now your weight is on your hand, making your legs lighter and more mobile. The leg over the head stops your opponent from being able to roll up into you when you sit back. It's the #1 mistake white belts make to lose the armbar. Alternatively, we can grab the leg instead, which is often quicker and my personal preferred method. Both do the same thing, prevent your opponent from rolling into you. You have to do one or the other, it's extremely important. If my 8-year-old daughter can remember to bring the leg over the head before she falls back, then so can you. If your opponent doesn't lift their arm to defend their neck, then you can just finish with a cross collar choke anyways. I love these 2-part attacks where your opponent is screwed with either option. In this rolling footage, I do almost the exact same sequence except all are slight variations. I have Justin's leg killed by keeping my hips low and staying heavy on it as I work towards putting Justin's leg flat on the mat and in position for a knee slide. I pry my ankle out and go directly to the mount with a quick knee on belly for control. I always do this from mount. In the gi, I grab the collar to threaten the cross collar choke so I can get a reaction. I pull Justin up with the collar grip to make room for my knee. I don't have the leg over the head, so I grab his leg to stop him from rolling into me. Now I work towards bringing the leg over the head so I can utilize both my arms for the submission. Instead of going for the armbar, I go for the bicep slicer. This is a funny clip from when I was a white belt. I hear this guy's arm pop loudly multiple times and let go, but he said he didn't tap, which he didn't, so we just continue on and armbar him again seconds later. You should let go when the ref stops you or you hear or feel a clear tap. At the same time, your opponent is not your enemy. We should always treat them with respect and sportsmanship and value their physical safety, but also understand it's their job to protect themselves and tap when they need to. My student Isaiah won a ton of gold medals using the sequence of attacks. The Kimura and hip bump sweep work so well together. Another two-part system where your opponent is screwed either way. We're going to pull guard and pull our opponent into close guard, a guard with a ton of attacks available and it's hard for your opponent to pass. Now we're going to target an arm with either a Kimura or a hip bump sweep. If we get the hip bump sweep into mounts, we'll work the armbar that we went over in the last game plan. If our opponent is able to defend the hip bump sweep, we're going to switch right to the Kimura. The opposite is also true. If our opponent is able to defend the Kimura, we're going to switch right to the hip bump sweep. To pull guard, we're going to place our foot on our opponent's hip and sit to our back. To get close guard, we're going to climb up on our opponent's torso with our legs as we break posture with the collar and sleeve grips. We need to make sure we establish a connection with our foot before sitting back, or our opponent will easily pass our guard before we can establish one. There's nothing wrong with pulling guard. I've pulled guard many times despite being a pretty good wrestler and MMA fighter. I'm confident off my back and sometimes I just want to get it right to the ground. The setups for Kimuras and hip bump sweeps are the same. Let's look at some of them. Bring your opponent's hands to the mat in a praying motion works great. And anytime you see your opponent's hands on the mat, that should be a trigger to go for one of these. Breaking your opponent's posture and working towards inside control is another great setup. Inside control in general is important in Jiu-Jitsu. That praying motion also highlights the effectiveness of inside control. Grip fighting is essential and a great way to get control of the arm. Look what I do, I circle my hand to the inside. For Kimuras, you want to grab initially with your thumb for control, then take your thumb out for a monkey grip to finish with more power. If you lock up the Kimura but can't get it out because your opponent has a tight grip on their thigh or their belt, bring your chest close to their elbow and straighten your legs to push off with your hamstrings. This is a great way to break a strong defensive grip. If the grip is too strong or you just want to, you can always switch to the hip bump sweep. Again, the setups are the same. See how I use that praying motion? Let's look at the details for a solid hip bump sweep. We want to get our hand onto the mat so we can reach their arm and block it from posting out and preventing the sweep. We don't want to loop our arm underneath theirs because they'll still be able to post. Instead, cup their elbow and glue their arm to your body. This is a detail many miss but is crucial. We want to drop our bottom leg low so we can prevent them from basing with their knees or legs. Our other foot pushes off the mat as we go from knees pointing towards the sky to knees pointing towards the mat. We bump them with our hips, hence the name. If our opponent stops the sweep, we can switch to the Kimura by looping our arm through and grabbing their wrist. If you enjoy my work and want to support my efforts as well as gain access to exclusive content, you can join my Patreon for as little as $5 a month. It's pay what you want and I'll answer your questions anytime and make short videos if I can't explain it in text. You'll also gain access to a once a month live Ask Me Anything interactive seminar. I want to be your official online jiu-jitsu coach. If your opponent pulls guard, it's crucial not to let them put you in close guard. Stay out, then work the same system we worked before. Knee slide to low knee on belly to mount. Then armbar using the cross collar choke threat setup. Then if your opponent turns away, we'll take their back with a chair sit back take and finish with a bow and arrow choke. We'll look at it both when you're on your overside and when you're on your underside. Although your opponent doesn't get points for close guard, you have to think of it as being just as bad as mount because they have so many sweeps and submissions available to them. Our only objective is to get out. My favorite way to get out is to stand up with the sleeve and push down on the knee. You should really watch my how to get out of close guard video. That will be really important for tournament success. Not being able to get out of close guard is the #1 problem white belts have in tournaments. If we keep our knees off the mat and glue our elbow to our knee, it's going to be very hard for them to put us in close guard. And that's a solid passing position anyways. Now we can work towards putting our opponent's leg flat on the mat and executing our knee slide. If our opponent has grips on us, we should break grips so they can't control our posture. We want to step over one leg to make it difficult for them to use for offense. Then we can go knee slide and secure side control for at least 3 seconds and use our low knee on belly to get to mount. You gotta be prepared if your opponent does a big bridge and turns to their side to try and escape. We're gonna go to a technical mount, meaning knee beside the head, another foot in front of their hips, and take seatbelt grips with your arms. When we sit back for the back take, you can't have your foot out like this or you may hurt your knee. Instead, tuck it in and sit back. This is called a chair sit back take. When we have the back, we're either going to be on our overside or our underside. When I'm on my overside, I like to feed the lapel from one hand to the other, then take my hook out and do the same motion as the chair sit back take. We want to keep our elbow tight so their head can't pop out underneath and escape, as well as cross our feet for maximum control and power. I did this at the Toronto IBJJF Open as a purple belt, except I didn't grab the pants and do the traditional bow and arrow choke. My grip was so tight on the neck, I didn't need to. That's why it's so important to feed the lapel from one hand to the other to get a super tight grip. I just arch back and get the tap. When we're on our underside, we still want to feed the lapel from one hand to the other. Now we can grab the pants and put our opponent in our lap. We want our opponent in our lap, not on our lap. This is an example of on our lap, and this is an example of in our lap. It seems like every example I have is a slight variation, but that's what happens when you roll or compete. You have to adapt. I'm on my underside, I go to grab the pants but end up letting go and finishing with this modification. Now let's look at when your opponent takes you down. It's a bit situational as different takedowns land you in different positions, but in many cases pushing on the head and working towards standing up will be your best bet. If your opponent can't secure position and you stand up, they won't get their 2 points for the takedown. This is really good anti-jiu-jitsu. Just because you're on the ground doesn't mean you have to stay there. You have to be annoying, gotta make them work hard, don't settle. If you do get taken down, you want to land with good grips. Don't let your opponent grab your head. It is so much easier to escape bad positions when your opponent can't grab your head. These are T-Rex arms, elbows close to my body and hands cupping the shoulder and bicep. Now my bump and shrimp will be so much easier. I can get my guard back and start working my KIMURA and hip bump sweep system. We want to do a big bump, get completely on our side to get our opponent's weight off of us. Now we can shrimp and make as much space as possible. Both movements have to be powerful. You have gravity against you. Bring your foot close to your butt to really push off the mat hard. To really ensure tournament success, your diet, strength and conditioning, and mobility should all be on point. Check out my friend Kieran's channel for that. I'll put a link in the description. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Please leave a comment or fist bump if you're still here. This one took me a long time to make and I really appreciate it.